If you literally can't make yourself show up right on time, like physically can't do it, this video is going to explain something kind of uncomfortable about your personality. Because people who are always early, they're not really doing it for other people. They're doing it because their nervous system treats being late like actual danger. Hey, I'm Sarah. So I used to think everyone secretly judged late people the same way I did. I'd leave ridiculously early for everything because the idea of walking into a room late made me physically anxious. My friends thought it was funny, but to me it felt serious, almost dangerous. Then I started reading about anticipatory anxiety and perfectionism, and it kind of hit me. My punctuality wasn't just a habit. It was emotional self-protection. Most people think being early is just a personality quirk. Something harmless, maybe even, kind of admirable. But psychology says something way deeper is going on. And once you understand it, you'll honestly never look at punctuality the same way again. Because if you're someone who's always early, not sometimes, but like constantly, your brain probably experiences time completely differently from everyone around you. Here's the first thing most people get wrong. You're not early because you love waiting. Nobody actually enjoys sitting alone in a parking lot 25 minutes before an appointment, scrolling through their phone, pretending they're not ridiculously early. You do it because being late feels emotionally unsafe. And that's a huge difference. Psychologists call this anticipatory anxiety. Basically, your brain reacts to future possibilities like their immediate threats. Traffic, parking, getting lost, walking into a room after everyone's already seated. Your nervous system starts treating all of that like danger signals. So your brain comes up with a solution. Leave early enough that nothing can possibly go wrong. And honestly, it works. You get relief the second you arrive. That moment when you finally park the car and go, okay, I made it. That's not satisfaction. That's your nervous system finally calming down. And here's where it gets even more interesting. Research on personality traits shows that people who are chronically early tend to score really high in conscientiousness. One of the big 5 personality traits linked to reliability, planning, long-term success, all that. So yeah, your punctuality probably does make you dependable. But there's another side to it. Studies on perfectionism by psychologist Thomas Curran found that perfectionists aren't actually obsessed with success. They're obsessed with avoiding failure and judgment. Think about that for a second. For most people, being 5 minutes late is annoying. For you, it feels personal. Like it says something about your character, like people are going to think you're careless, irresponsible, disrespectful, or just not put together. And that's why being late feels so emotionally intense. You're not just managing time, you're managing perception. You might even notice this in other parts of your life too. Do you over-prepare for simple things? Triple-check texts before sending them? Replay conversations in your head afterward? Because people who are always early often carry this deeper pattern of hyper-responsibility. You learned somewhere along the way that mistakes have consequences. So now your brain just tries to prevent every possible one before it even happens. And a lot of this starts way earlier than people realize. Psychologists studying attachment and childhood predictability found that people raised in chaotic or inconsistent environments often become highly control-oriented adults. Maybe your parents were always late. Maybe they got angry about lateness. Maybe your childhood just felt unpredictable in ways you couldn't control. So your brain adapted. You became the reliable one, the prepared one, the person who never creates problems for other people. And without even realizing it, punctuality became emotional armor. Now here's the strange paradox. The stress of being early is exhausting, but the stress of being late feels even worse. So your brain just picks the option that feels safer. That's why people who are always early often don't even experience it as a choice anymore. It just feels automatic. And there's another layer nobody really talks about: control. Being early gives you control over the environment before it gets overwhelming. Think about it. When you arrive first, the room's quiet. You can choose where to sit. You can mentally adjust. You can settle into the space before the noise, the unpredictability, and the social pressure all show up. For people with sensitive nervous systems, those extra 15 minutes feel incredibly calming. Research on optimal arousal theory shows that some people just process stimulation more intensely than others. So arriving early isn't really about timing. It's emotional regulation. You're creating a buffer between yourself and the chaos. And honestly, there's something kind of admirable about that too. Because people who are always early tend to be deeply considerate. You respect commitments. You respect people's time. You don't want others waiting on you because you know how uncomfortable waiting feels. In a world where reliability is getting rarer, that matters. But there's also a cost, because eventually you realize something kind of uncomfortable. You've built your whole sense of peace around preventing worst-case scenarios. You can't fully relax because part of your brain is always calculating. What time should I leave? What if traffic changes? What if parking's bad? What if I'm late? And over time, that constant hypervigilance just becomes exhausting. You win the battle against being late, but you sometimes lose the ability to actually feel present. Now, this doesn't mean being early is unhealthy. Far from it. Researchers consistently link conscientiousness and punctuality with stronger relationships, trustworthiness, and career success. The goal isn't to become careless. The goal is understanding why your brain needs so much certainty to feel safe. Because once you get that, something shifts. You stop seeing yourself as weird or too intense. You realize your punctuality was never random. It was your nervous system trying to protect you. And maybe the real growth isn't forcing yourself to become someone who casually shows up late without caring. Maybe it's learning that even if life gets unpredictable sometimes, you'll still be okay. That your worth isn't tied to perfect timing. That people aren't suddenly going to stop loving or respecting you because you walked in 3 minutes late. And honestly, that realization is probably more freeing than arriving early ever was. If you're finding this interesting so far, subscribe to the channel. We break down the hidden psychology behind everyday behaviors most people never think about. And here's the payoff. People who are always early aren't just organized. They're often managing anxiety, protecting themselves from judgment, looking for control in uncertainty, and trying to create some kind of emotional safety before the chaos arrives. Your punctuality isn't really about clocks. It's about identity, about safety, about how your brain learned to survive stress. So next time you find yourself sitting in your car 20 minutes early, don't just assume you're being overly responsible. Ask yourself this instead. What am I actually trying to avoid feeling if I'm not early? Because the answer to that question reveals way more about you than punctuality ever could. If this video resonated with you, subscribe for more psychology deep dives just like this one. And let me know in the comments. Are you the person who's always early or the one sprinting through the door at the last second?